So David Kelly here, all the way from the United States. Thank you very much for coming on the show, David Kelly.
Hey, thank you. Glad to be here.
So, just before we get into the show, just tell everyone a little bit about yourself, who you are, and you're not adversarial to the movement at all. So just explain to people who you are and a bit of your background and stuff, whatever you want to say.
Well, sure. Currently, I'm the lead scientist for Artificial General Intelligence, or the AGI lab. I have a background in computer science. I'm also the acting chief software architect for the Boston Consulting Group. And I have a corporate management background as well, managing multinational organizations with hundreds of people. And uh, that's who I am, and I'm a diehard transhumanist.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So, yeah, as I said, not adversarial to the campaign, not adversarial to the movement, and very you have a background in science and management, so you know what you're talking about because you've written a statement, and the statement's very interesting, and you've been promoting the statement to some big groups and to some large audiences, and so I picked up on this, and I wanted to talk to you about this statement because it's an interesting one, and your statement is a statement on the Transhumanist Party, which is the U.S. Transhumanist Party, and its negative impact on transhumanism in the movement. Would you like to tell us what motivated you to write this piece here?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest issue is I had originally tried to be involved with politics in transhumanism, and I think that's why a lot of these people tag me, um, I'm interested in seeing the policy effects, and that's well known. Um, and it, I guess the biggest motivating factor is that every time I log into Facebook, I'm tagged on another post that someone did, and I just want to be clear that, I'm not supporting, and I'm not saying one is better than the other, but everyone keeps tagging me, and I go to my Facebook profile and I see 35 posts that have tagged David Kelly as if I'm in them. And I know they're not trying to be, mean or anything, they're just trying to raise visibility. But the thing is, I don't support that approach. I don't think it's productive. And so I thought, I would just, if you're going to tag me, I'm going to put a link about, this is what I think about transhumanist politics, because I totally think it's possible that we could do something, but it's not in the way they're doing it. And so that's why I created the statement,
Yeah,
because everyone tags me, and uh, I just want to be clear that I'm not on board with that methodology.
yeah. So Zoltan Itzvan, it's interesting because Zoltan Itzvan has written a sort of a message to the candidates, and he said, you have to get outside of your Facebook bubble and communicate with different people and trying to access different mediums and things like
He's
this.
right.
So your grievances though go a little deeper because the title of your piece is the Transhumanist Party and its negative impact. Is there something against the party itself and the process that you don't like as an advocacy concern?
Well, yeah. So the issue I have is um, uh, them going after the presidency of the United States in such a way that it's just, I mean, it's a joke in terms of them being serious about it. You can't, without the approval of the top 1%, without one of the major parties on board, and without at least 100 million or more, you don't have any chance at all of being president of the United States. And so from that standpoint, I find the running for president to be somewhat questionable. Now, um, when I spoke with Zoltan originally when he was running, um, privately, he had talked about how he thought it would drive more media attention. But the problem is he's actually an experienced journalist and an experienced professional writer, where the kids that are running now are neither. Um, now, if they were to take a different tactic, and not try to run for president, maybe as a lobby, maybe as a transhumanist that just happens to be a Democrat running for office, like this Yang person that Musk just endorsed. He's kind of a techno-futurist kind of guy. Um, uh, that would make sense. If you win the primary in the Democratic Party and then come out and say, oh, yeah, by the way, I'm a transhumanist, and you have the $100 million and you have the experience, if the transhumanist party wants to really be taken seriously, maybe they should try to win the school board election or a city council or a mayorship and work their way up, get the experience to actually do the job. Even Trump at least had managed a multi-global corporation. I'm not saying I agree with him. With the scale analysis I used to determine how good in the last election, on a scale of 1 to 90, Trump scored a 6. The problem is Hillary scored an 8, in terms of supporting a scale of 1 to 90, I think it was. They were both terrible futurist candidates. But those were the only realistic choices. And we get the same kind of thing now. Now we have Trump is getting ensconced almost, and the Democratic Party is falling apart, or at least it's just pandemonium from my standpoint. And then you have people looking at, oh, there's these little fringe guys with some people that have no experience at all doing crazy stuff that they just, no one's even going to pay attention. And so that's my concern, is that when they get out there, they're not using a realistic approach. It makes them appear kind of crazy, and that crazy or that fringe element, at least the way Americans think, they're going to kind of classify everyone together. I know that's a horrible bias that humans have, but they tend to be judgmental, and they're going to see, my wife already thinks I'm going to go to hell for being a transhumanist. And a lot of normal Americans, when they hear little, transhumanism and that sort of thing, nothing good comes to mind. And when they see some of these candidates and what they're doing, it's just not helping it. Where if you were to see a serious, like Gennady, if Gennady was running for senator or something, and he's up on stage and he gets some press, people are going to say, hey, that he's well-spoken, he's well-dressed and articulate. That's someone I would vote for. And doing it locally, like in Nevada, where I believe he lives, he would have a chance. It's possible he might win. And once he gets the attention of the people that control the reins of power, then he has a chance to grow past that from a political standpoint. And I really feel that if you're going to make a go at politics as a transhumanist, that's kind of the methodology I believe you would have to do to actually be able to win an election and without hurting the movement. And doing things fringe that are atypical for the non-middle-of-the-road American, when they see transhumanism and they relate it to, people that are way outside of their demographic and have no experience trying to run for president, it makes it look fringe. And the more people think of transhumanism as fringe, the harder it is for me as an academic, as a professional. When I go to a scientific conference and they're all like, oh, that guy's a transhumanist, and they disregard his opinion as being too fringe. And that's the kind of I guess, concern I have about the way the Transhumanist Party is driving that visibility. And it's not that I disagree with their position at all. And like I said, Gennady is probably one of the most I would love to see him run as senator here in like Seattle or anywhere I've ever lived. He'd be a great candidate. That's the kind of thing I would like to see, not these grandiose president of the United States, but we're going to have a rave party kind of thing.
The
No, no.
unfortunate component of Gennady is that he was born outside of the United States, which makes him ineligible for a lot of political campaigning, except for his local gubernatorial districts, etc. And that's what throws.
And yeah, I can see that, but still, that's the kind of what I'm saying is that's the kind of candidate I would like to
Yeah,
see at
yeah,
regional elections and start there. People use like the Green Party as an example of success, but I argue that's an example of abstract failure in exactly the kind of thing that we want to avoid. The Green Party marginalized themselves. They essentially were locked out of politics. And what's worse, corporate America stole their idea as a marketing phrase. Now everything is green. And the Green Party is a bunch of crazies that no one votes for. That's exactly the scenario that I think the Transhumanist Party could get into, and exactly what I want to avoid.
yeah. It's very early in the stage. The Transhumanist Party hasn't been around for very long. But are you saying that there's no room for recovery on this, or do you think it's already baked
Well,
into the
I mean,
cake?
there's always room for recovery. It's I find it difficult to ever say things are set in stone. But the transhumanist party in the United States is so unknown and so fringe already, and hardly anyone even. It's not like a household word, other than what they might hear in movies or any other things that are unrelated to the transhumanist party.
Yeah, and that's part of the point of that idea that's why they want to correct the tone and and try and advocate in those good ways. But look, you say here in your article, your first condition in the United States is not the same as other countries. Third parties have failed to get any reasonable ground. So, because others have failed, this is going to fail. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's not so much because others have failed, it's because of what the two parties have done. So there's a number of things inside the United States where they have manipulated things in a way that I would say might not be that ethical if they were honest with themselves, from gerrymandering with districts. They've really manipulated things in such a way where they lock people out of elections, and that's why you don't see. It's not just one party; it's all of the third parties are more or less locked out, um, and a lot of that has to do with some very, in my opinion, borderline corrupt stuff. Wherever everything from bribery to like gerrymandering is one of my biggest, is just crazy. If you look at how they lay out the districts and arrange things just so they get the right demographic so they can make sure that they win the electoral colleges or the different, that's so unethical as to be. I mean, it's just wrong. And all of the big political capital is all locked up in these different lobbies that are tied in with these parties and these candidates, that if someone else comes up with a good idea, they're just going to be ignored and bowled over.
Yeah. I understood. Yeah, America's a very corrupt sort of democratic system. It's easy to see here from
It's
the
not.
outside.
It's just,
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, with quotes. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I did use the quotes. I can see it here from the outside very easily. You say second, the term transhuman and all related words have a social stigma, a significant social stigma, and many candidates have no experience who are and are already fringe. So, so you mentioned before hijacking an already established party, like something like Andrew Yang would do, or getting an endorsement by somebody like by Elon Musk or a billionaire to hijack an existing party. You think this is a better strategy for advocacy?
Well, I don't know about advocacy. but I think they certainly get a lot more traction. If the front runner of the Democratic Party came out as a transhumanist, then the transhumanist party would have some teeth to it. It in the United States, if you're not willing to play the game the way it's being played by the other parties in DC, you're not going to get anywhere fast. But by coming up as a Democrat or even as a Republican, and then coming out, like if Peter Fell or this Yang guy came out as a transhumanist, you've now set the groundwork for that other, a movement, right, to start in the United States, with changing public perception, with washing away that social stigma. If it's one thing in the United States that will do it, is the person in charge, in that position, if they're able to achieve that, it would wash a lot of that away. And I think it would be a lot easier for a transhumanist political movement to come in. And then, even then, though, I would prefer like a 527 lobby, kind of like what we tried to do with the TNC. But even with the TNC, it's just there's two, without the money and the position, it's hard to really get established.
Yeah, because you write here they don't have the experience, money, or political capital, and are not willing to play the game as they are idealistic. So that's pretty scathing. So you thoroughly believe that must be the case. No experience, no money, no political capital, and too idealistic to actually make an impact. So
Yep.
so
That's right.
wind back the whole project. Is it like, and rethink the strategy going forward?
So repeat the question.
Would you like to see them wind back the whole project and rethink the whole strategy going forward?
Well, I would like to see the transhumanist party. Yeah, I think that the candidacy stuff should just stop, and they should focus on maybe more of a lobby effort.
Lobby effort.
And if they can get some of these big names or support people like Yang, that's where I think there's a chance to have a positive impact.
Do you think that any of this other stuff will come up of not having any experience, money, political capital, and being too idealistic is going to just keep coming up if they create a lobby as well?
Well, they're going to have to, if they get far enough to actually be noticed, those other things would come up. But if they're backing like a Yang or someone that has experience, no, the reason those people can be successful is because they have the experience and the backing.
Yeah, understood. The last paragraph you said here is that a transhumanist party is not tenable and overall has a negative impact. Therefore, voting for a transhumanist candidate without any experience of any kind, meaning they have held a political office for any significance, or being edgy, is nothing more than hurting transhumanists as a movement. While everyone means well, and I keep getting tagged and do admit being philosophically a transhumanist, keep in mind that I am neither voting for a transhumanist party member nor supporting the transhumanist party, and I would encourage other transhumanists to do the same. So let's take you as a sample. Let's take you as an example. If you're being annoyed by this and you're actually an advocate for the cause, you think that this is having a ripple effect throughout the wider community who's just on the fringe of knowing what's happened and or just interested or not interested at all, and you think this is pushing people away?
Well, for the people that would get into transhumanism to begin with, I think they find it interesting, because they don't know any better. A lot of them aren't political pundits. They don't follow politics too well. They just know the politics is messed up and they want to see change, and they're being idealistic about it. So for the person that has a predilection to be transhumanist, unless they have ties to politics outside of transhumanism, they might not notice. They're just gonna, oh, cool, there's the transhumanist party, let's all go do that. And so all three people will go down and vote for that they'll have to write in because it won't even be on the ballot. Whereas for normal Americans, when they see some fringe group or small party group, the way the two parties have set everything up, the way that demographic is going to consume that information, it's going to make them look fringe. If you pick average Americans off the street that actually vote, and then ask them, well, hey, have you heard about the transhumanist party or these transhumanist? No, and even that is probably not going to be helpful. It needs to be presented in some way to produce a net positive aesthetic. Otherwise, it's hurting the movement, or it's creating more social stigma with the terms and the movement. That's the biggest problem.
So in your last paragraph, you said, help us normalize transhumanism by socially not doing fringe things, instead attacking the problem more like, for say, Alcor Life Extension Foundation cryonics, or book writing, or positive contributions. I want to see real grassroots movement. So Sen's Foundation, Ben Goertzel, Ray Kurzweil. You want to just... Is that just a policy of more of the same, or are you arguing something radically different here?
Well, I would argue that it would be better to have more of a cohesive movement, but I don't think that's entirely realistic. But what I do think is helpful is for people to actually do positive, real things. And I just, like Alcor as an example. They're a company. They're doing something transhumanist, and they're trying to take it to market and be successful. Or Newton's book. He's made a living writing books, and he's writing transhumanist books. And, a lot of us are contributing work to his books. He gets them edited and published. Yeah, he makes money off of it. But like the book that just came out, in transparency, in the spirit of transparency, I did write one of the chapters in there. But that transhumanist handbook is probably the one of the best references on transhumanism to date, and that's a positive contribution in my mind. And Zoltan, like with his novel, or with a lot of the other media stuff he does. I think that's a positive net gain. In any of the stuff, like what we're trying to do with this startup that we set up this AI for, called Uplift, that's trying to turn corporations into meta organisms. That's kind of a type of meta artificial general intelligence. I think it's a positive net gain. So it's that kind of real world activities, and if they want to do it in terms of policies and local positions and that kind of stuff, I think that would be great too. But it's achievable real world results, whether it's in local politics or in business or in book writing or things that help gel a movement. I think is more positive.
Yeah, all right, that's very cool. And well, thank you very much. That's mainly the main questions I had to ask you. It's just about your statement here, because I found it very interesting, and that's very cool. Is there anything else you'd like to tell the audience before we go? We have a pretty smart audience here, a bunch of politicians and health experts and academics and all the others who watch this, especially here in Australia, because this is an Australian. If you didn't guess by my accent.
I might put a plug in for the press conference we're holding next Saturday, which has a VR component from the Microsoft campus. I'd love everyone to pay attention to that. Basically, we've put in a type of meta AGI as the CEO of a startup, and so there's a press conference next Saturday, and I would love everyone to pay attention and check out the news after that happens. I'm not sure how much press it'll generate, but the announcement's up at Microsoft, and we'll see where it goes.
That's huge. It's huge news. All right, Dave Kelly, thank you so much for coming on and expressing your opinion. I really enjoyed that. It's good. You're not adversarial. You're not out to annoy anyone. You're just trying to say what you think would be a positive spin, on what you see, and I respect and have have a thorough respect for that point of view. Thank you very much, David Kelly.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
No problem. Everyone go and watch Detonation. All more coming all this way this week. Detonation. Thank you very much. David Kelly.